Welcome to this lesson on design principles, guides to help your communication and pedagogy. There are a number of different sets of principles for effective learning design that various educational theorists might favor. This lesson assumes that you may be new to the education field, so I'll take a broader approach to discussing learning design principles by first focusing on some basic learning theories and ideas that are common in Canadian education. It's important to note that these principles borrow from constructivist educational theorists, so there are a number of other principles that may be of greater importance to theorists from different educational schools like behaviorism and cognitivism. In our course site, there's a brief reading on learner and teacher-centered design. These terms are very common in Canadian education and focus on the types of relationships that learners have with their teachers and the curriculum. The principle of learner-centeredness reminds us as learning designers that learners should be the most active agents in the learning environment and process. Without this emphasis on the learner, sometimes instructional approaches are driven solely by the teacher's preferences and goals, experiences and learning styles, which may not be a good fit for their learners. Designers must therefore plan and create learning resources and environments that keep learners as active as possible, incorporating learner preferences, goals, experiences, and learning styles as much as possible to help their learners work through the curriculum in the most meaningful ways. The following 12 learning principles build on this constructivist notion of learner or learning-centered instruction. They're borrowed from the educational theorist Jane Vella, whose book, Learning to Listen, Learning to Teach, outlines them in much greater detail. Her principles are needs assessment, safety, sound relationships, sequencing and reinforcement, praxis, respect for learners, ideas, feelings, and action, immediacy, clear roles, teamwork, engagement, and accountability. You may wish to review the resources below this lesson video related to Jane Vella to help you work through her ideas as I discuss them. Needs assessment refers to the idea that teachers and designers must be aware of what the needs of their learners are. We do this by asking lots of questions about our audience before designing curriculum and learning objects and anticipating their diversity of needs. Knowing the needs of our learners, including their prior experiences and goals, can help us design curriculum and learning objects that are more meaningful and authentic to our audience. Safety refers to the idea that learners must always feel physically and psychologically safe in their learning environment, whether it is a physical classroom, online course, or some other mode of delivery. If learners do not feel safe, they will not engage the curriculum or take risks that may help them extend their knowledge and skills beyond what they know and feel comfortable with. As designers, this means that we must be conscious and careful of how the products we create and the way we communicate make our learners feel, especially when working with curriculum that challenges our learners' values, emotional states, and comfort zones. For some educational theorists, relationships are key to learning. People learn in educational settings by discussing and practicing new ideas, skills, and values with others. For example, with their teachers, their classmates, their family members, and their friends. As designers, we must therefore create opportunities for our audience to practice curriculum with others. Although this can be challenging in online environments where physical and social presence is limited, designers can plan and create curriculum that builds connections between people, even if those connections are solely virtual. Sequencing and reinforcement refers to the idea that people learn best when curriculum is sequenced in such a way that ideas and skills are connected, built in complexity, and are reinforced through repetition. This is of special importance to designers because they must make choices about how curriculum is chunked and ordered. Praxis refers to the idea that learners must reflect on and practice new ideas, skills, and values to meaningfully integrate them into their lives. As designers, we must therefore develop activities that require our audience to think deeply about the relevance and meaning of curriculum and to use and practice what they learn. Respect for learners refers to the ideas discussed earlier related to learner-centered instruction. Rather than making the curriculum or instructor the main focus within the learning environment, designers must focus on the preferences, goals, experiences, and learning styles of the learners and try as much as possible to create opportunities to share power with them. The principle of ideas, feelings, and actions refers to the need to make our curriculum as holistic as possible by incorporating opportunities for learners to develop their understanding of concepts, their values and emotions, and their skills. Later in this course, we'll discuss how learning outcomes can be categorized within the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domains, and these domains directly correlate with this principle. As designers, we therefore need to plan and create curriculum and learning objects that holistically support learning in each of these domains. Immediacy refers to the idea that learners need to see the relevance of curriculum to their life goals and needs, or they won't want to learn it. As designers, we therefore need to clearly and regularly state the purpose of our curriculum and encourage our learners to use it to meaningfully improve their lives. Clear roles refers to the idea that learners need to understand their roles and responsibilities within the learning environment, as well as the roles of their teachers, classmates, and others who they may encounter. This includes knowing how everyone should appropriately communicate, participate in learning activities, complete assignments and assessments, and so on. As designers, this means that we must make our tasks and expectations for both the learner and the teacher as explicit as possible in the curriculum and learning objects that we create. Teamwork refers to the idea that learning is a collaborative process where people learn from each other as much as they learn from the curriculum and teacher. As designers, we therefore need to incorporate opportunities for learners to engage each other and share responsibility for each other's learning. Engagement refers to the idea that learners must want to learn the curriculum. Motivating students to learn can sometimes be difficult, but it is a necessary part of instruction and learning design. As designers, we must therefore clearly express why curriculum is important and how it can help our learners. As well, we must incorporate various instructional media and methods that capture and maintain the interest of our audience, using such strategies as humor, storytelling, interactivity, dialogue, multimedia, and so on. Accountability refers to the idea that both the learners and the teacher must be held accountable for the learning and the teaching process. This means that learners must know what they are responsible for, whether it's participating in activities or completing assignments on time, as well as what the teacher is responsible for, whether it's teaching the curriculum in an accessible and appropriate way, providing timely support and feedback, or evaluating student assignments transparently and fairly. For more information and background about the principles discussed here, see the resources related to Jane Vella in our course website. Again, there are many lists of instructional principles you may find in your own research, but these present a fairly comprehensive list of principles you will likely find useful as you approach the task of learning design. Now that we've briefly discussed some common constructivist learning principles, we will look briefly at example principles of effective communication. It's important to remember that communication is the central act in learning design. As a designer, your task is to find ways to best communicate curriculum to a given audience by choosing the most appropriate methods and media. There are some basic communication principles that are therefore relevant to learning design. These include clarity, conciseness, objectivity, consistency, completeness, relevancy, audience, and feedback. Each of these principles helps to ensure that a given audience receives a given message. We'll now briefly look at each. Clarity refers to the idea that the messages we communicate must be as clear and simple as possible. In academia, politics, and many other professions, sometimes language is used that obfuscates or hides meaning. For example, jargon, complex terminology, and complex sentence structure can get in the way of efficient communication. As designers, we therefore need to find the clearest and most precise way of communicating our intended message to our audience, making careful choices when deciding the terminology, structure, and media we use. Conciseness refers to the idea that we need to chunk information into simple and manageable units that don't overload our audience. As designers, we therefore need to be careful not to needlessly waste our audience's time. For example, when choosing between long and short words or sentences that communicate the same meaning, we always choose to be more concise. Objectivity refers to the idea that we need to keep the purpose of our communication at the forefront of our message. In education, objectivity relates to learning objectives, which we use to describe the intentions of our curriculum and to plan our activities. As designers, we therefore need to clearly describe the purpose of our curriculum to our audience, including the intended learning outcomes. Consistency refers to the idea that our tone, voice, and content must be reasonably uniform, ordered, and structured. Although varying our approach can be a good strategy to maintain learner engagement, as designers we need to make sure to plan our curriculum and learning objects so that they communicate a consistent message. Completeness refers to the idea that our communication should not leave out important information and should be self-contained. As designers, we therefore need to research carefully to ensure our curriculum and learning objects are thorough and have clear summaries and conclusions that don't leave our audience unfulfilled or frustrated. Relevancy refers to the idea that our messages must be contextually related to each other and connected to our learning goals. As designers, we must therefore make sure that everything we include in our curriculum fits together clearly and is clearly relevant. Audience refers to the idea that we need to know our audience to communicate to them effectively. As designers, this means that we must be aware of our learners' prior experiences, potential challenges they may have with the material, how their needs and motivations may vary, and so on. Feedback refers to the idea that our communications need to be multi-directional rather than one way. If all we do is communicate one way towards our audience, we never know if they receive our message. Instead, we need to seek feedback from our audience. As designers, this means that we must create many opportunities for our learners to share what they learn and think about the curriculum or the learning objects we create. There are many other communication principles that we might discuss to help us become better instructional designers, but the preceding list is a good place to start. You should be able to describe each of these principles and connect them to the learning design process as you develop your own lessons and learning objects in the course. In this lesson, you were introduced to many different terms and ideas which you should now be able to use and define. The principles we discussed about effective teaching and learning, as well as effective design, should also guide you as you explore how to create an online lesson as well as other learning objects. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me via email or Skype.